So baby steps, right? In order to accomplish a goal that seems so gargantuan and it has so many moving parts, it's overwhelming. I know that this is not any original advice, but any goal, no matter how big it is, no matter how long of a time span that it would typically take to achieve, it can be broken down into smaller and smaller particles to the point it can be broken down to a manageable task that you can do like in this moment. So for example, when I was let go from my previous job in April and I had to job search for a new job. I didn't update my resume. I hadn't gotten an interview in at least 3 years. So I was rusty, right? And I was scared and it was very daunting and it was a lot of work, of course, to research and to prepare myself for all of these job interviews. But I would literally the way that I got through it is that I would break it down into steps and tasks that were so minuscule that any given moment I would just have tunnel vision on that one task. And it didn't matter, however small I had to break it down to, I was going to break it down to that small piece. So I think a lot of times, like when we hear this advice or traditionally as it has been given, you think, okay, so I have this big goal and I need to break it down into like 5 smaller steps. And then you try to do the first step out of 5, right? What we often find is that 1/5 of a large goal or task is actually still very large and overwhelming. But then since we kind of misinterpret this common advice to mean that, but if you break it down into small pieces, it should be easy, right? So then, at least this is in my case. I don't know if I can speak for everyone, but I would often find myself like subconsciously beating myself up, like, oh, what's wrong with me? I broke this big goal or task down into 10 different steps, but I'm still not even able to accomplish step 1 in one day. Like, what's wrong with me? I can't even do 1/10 of the work, without realizing that 1/10 of a large task is still a substantial amount of work and it can still be overwhelming, right? So, for example, let's take something as simple as reading an entire book. Let's take what's the average length of a book these days? A 400-page book. Say it's 12 chapters, right? And you're like, okay, I want to read this book. I don't want to take forever to finish it. Let's give me a week to 2 weeks tops to finish this book. I'll give myself some flexibility depending on how busy my schedule gets, but my goal is to read this book from cover to cover within 2 weeks. So then you think, okay, well, the book has 12 chapters, so all I have to do is read one chapter a day and that's it. I should be done within the 2 weeks. But then you find that as you're reading the first chapter, you get distracted, or maybe you start getting sleepy and you're not able to finish it. Because you didn't finish the first chapter in the first sitting, you see that as a failure, that, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I wasn't even able to complete the first baby step of this task. But the thing is, like, all you had to do was break it down to even smaller pieces. It's not like your idea of what a small piece is. You have to break it down to a piece that is small enough so that you can actually handle it, right? So it may be that you can only read one paragraph at a time. And then that feels like, okay, good. I was able to read a paragraph. Now I can go to the second paragraph. It may be that you have to go sentence by sentence. You might even have to go word by word, right? Chances are, if you go word by word, you'll get bored really easily and decide that, okay, I can handle more than this. So then you decide, okay, I'm going to read it sentence by sentence now. And the trick to calm your nervous system, so to speak, or to calm that anxiety of, I got to finish this, I'm supposed to finish 1/10, or, I'm supposed to finish step 2 of this by the end of this week. The trick is that if you break everything into small enough digestible steps that you can actually accomplish within a short frame of time. So a baby step should not take you an entire day to do, right? That in itself is already a big task in my definition. A baby step should be something that you can accomplish in maybe, like, preferably 1 minute, but maybe 5 to 10 minutes tops. For me personally, that's a comfortable span of time where it's like I can focus for that long, but I don't feel like I'm exerting so much energy that I'm just depleted by the end of it. So yeah, with reading a book, if you haven't read for a while, and you want to tackle a book that's like 1,000 pages long, or it has 20 chapters, chances are you're going to get discouraged if you try to assign yourself one chapter per day or one chapter per sitting. It's probably going to take you, like 15-20 minutes to read a whole chapter. That's too long. That's too much energy exertion. You need like an easier win, if that makes sense. So maybe instead of by chapter, you could do it by page. Like I will read one page first. For now, I'm just going to concentrate my energy on reading this one page. This is my only goal for now. Only until I reach the end of this one page, then I'm going to take stock of, okay, how am I feeling now? Do I feel like I want to go for another page? Do I feel like this is enough for me now, or I'm not in the mood and I don't really want to read anymore today? When you're in the thick of it, when you're in the thick of concentrating on that one micro task, only focus on that task. You don't think about anything else. Okay. Don't think about how, okay, I need to budget time for the rest of this chapter so that I can get to sleep by 12 a.m. Don't think about if I finish this chapter today, then all I have to do is keep this up for the next week and I'll be able to finish the whole book within the time period that I originally planned. If you start thinking about that, it's going to just add to your anxiety. We need to break the tasks down to such a small size that it doesn't feel like energy exertion to us. It just feels like this is just a thing in front of me that I'm going to do in the moment because it's immediate, it's fast, I can get it over with within 5 or 10 minutes. Once that step is done, only then do you go to the next micro task, if that makes sense. So for example, when I was looking for jobs after I got let go from my previous company in April. I mean, the entire one cycle of interviewing for a single job, it requires so many components, right? You have typically 2 to 3 interviews, maybe even more depending on the company. Each interview, you have to prepare you have to study up on the company and their background. You have to study up on the current state of the company today, like how are their profits looking this year? What new initiatives are they doing? What new products are they planning on rolling out? All of these things you have to prepare before a job interview if you want to make a good impression on the employer, right? And show them that you know what you're talking about and that you did your research. You also have to prepare, not only do you have to prepare answers to potential questions that they could ask you, you need to prepare what questions you want to ask them to get a proper gauge of the culture or the nature of the job and whatnot to see if it matches with the description that they gave you. So many parts, right? It's very overwhelming. And the whole process could take let's say on average, maybe 2 to 3 months from start to finish of sending the application, getting invited for a first interview, passing the first interview, getting invited for a second, and then finally getting the offer, signing the offer, all the way up until your actual start date. So thinking about even one component in that entire cycle of getting a new job, it's already overwhelming enough, right? Like the first interview, that should not be your mini task that you're focused on. Your mini task should be a micro-sized task. So for example, in my case, I thought to myself, okay, how can I do this in a way that is, I mean, nobody likes interviews, right? I don't like interviews. I don't like the feeling that it gives me. I don't like the anxiety. I mean, I do like practices to make sure that I can calm myself, but at the end of the day, I don't enjoy the interview process.
Yeah, I just don't enjoy it. It's not an enjoyable experience for me, and I don't like any of you.
But what really helped me was that instead of letting myself worry about that and have anxiety over that and leak my energy essentially towards this thought of, oh my God, I need to wake up and do this interview tomorrow, I literally broke it down to just, okay, first step, what would make this easier for me? Well, my apartment, for the most part, it's quiet. I like living here. I don't have loud neighbors or anything like that, but sometimes it's unpredictable because there will be construction outside. So there's loud construction noises, or sometimes there's a pole in the, what's it called, the ceiling on top of my apartment. Nobody lives above me. It's kind of just like a rooftop balcony, and there's a pole that is really noisy sometimes if it's windy. So I wanted to make sure that, okay, during the interview, I don't want to be distracted with any potential noises in my surroundings. So therefore, maybe instead of doing the interview in my apartment, I would want to rent a space for 2 or 3 hours, and I'll just bring my laptop there and do the interview there, where I know I can have peace and quiet because it's like a rented co-working type of rentable office space. So I did that, right? And then my only task that I was focused on was find a rentable office space near me within walking distance. Google search, rental space, multi-purpose space in Chofu, near Chofu Station, which is where I live near. Found it, checked the rates, looks reasonable. Okay, so when is my interview? My interview is at 2 a.m. tomorrow. So Now, next micro task, make the appointment for, let's say, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. so that you can comfortably get there and review a little bit before the interview, have the interview at the space, and then later on add some buffer time for you to like clean up and get back home. I am talking about that level of micro task, right? And I would just keep doing that until, before I know it, the first interview is over. Every single small micro step, every step that it took to complete the bigger task of finishing my first job interview, each individual step by itself, isolated, was no big deal at all, really. Finding the place, I can do that. Making an appointment, easy peasy, enter the credit card details and make the payment. Day of the interview, wake up at this time to do your makeup and get dressed and everything so that you can leave on time to make it to the co-working space and set up your computer and stuff. Did that. Once I'm there, I open up my notes that I took from the night before about the company, and I just review all of the bullet points that I've already jotted down for myself. I review the things that I already prepared that I was going to say or how I was going to answer if a certain question was asked of me. While I'm reviewing it, I'm just concentrating on retaining the information and how am I going to articulate this depending on the way that they ask me the question. That's the only thing that I'm focusing on while I am reviewing my notes for the interview, right? When the interview actually comes, the only like slightly anxiety inducing part of this process is the actual interview, because that's kind of game time where I'm actually talking to the people that have the power to decide whether or not they want to hire me. So that's unavoidable, right? I have to actually face the interviewers and try to sell myself to them. But at the same time, I'm also asking them pressing questions to make sure that they are being genuine about what their office culture is like, about what the position is expecting. After that's done, it's like I'm so focused on every individual micro task throughout the whole process that it's not that I don't feel any anxiety or nervousness whatsoever during the interview, but it calms my nerves a lot, right? It reduces the amount of nervousness a lot by just making sure that at every step along the way, I am only focusing on the micro task that is in front of me at the moment that I'm actually staring at. So yeah, you can apply this to literally every single task or goal that you have to accomplish. And the key point is to not overload yourself with more than you can handle in one, honestly, 5-minute chunk of time, I would say, because 5 minutes is not overwhelming to me. You can do a lot with 5 minutes. You'd be surprised. I have had, in the past, I have had instances where before I figured out this system of breaking bigger tasks down into micro tasks, I would kind of just think of I would like allow myself to be stressed about the whole task in its entirety for pretty much the entire process, which would drain me of probably 10 times more energy than was necessary. So like, for example, when I was writing a cover letter for just the application stage of getting a new job, that would sometimes take me the entire day, like 8 hours, because I'd be like, oh my God, I need to make it perfect, or I haven't written a cover letter in 3 years. So how do I do this? Like, I need to dig up all of my old cover letters from before to remind me how to write a cover letter. These days, you don't even need to do that because you have ChatGPT, you have AI on your side. So use AI, okay? Use all of the tools at your disposal. Use all the technology that we have. Every single advantage that we have in 2024, I want you to use without any sort of guilt or trepidation. It exists for you to use. That's all you need to know. Yeah, but in the past, I would spend like entire days sometimes on a one-page cover letter that I could have, if I had just put myself in the mind frame of, okay, forget about everything else. We're only focusing on this one task for the next 5 minutes, the next 10 minutes. I probably could have done maybe 3 iterations of that. And I could have just written like one sentence every 5 minutes, repeated that for the entire cover letter, and boom, I would have had my letter in 40 minutes. And I would have been able to send it out to the prospective employer. Boom, the entire application process is all done within 1 hour just by me having tunnel vision on the single micro task that is in front of me at any given moment. So the next 5 minutes, I'm going to write the first sentence. Next 5 minutes, I'm going to write the second sentence. Okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of stress. So I'm going to go into the kitchen and get a drink of water. When I come back, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes next time because now we're getting into the body of the cover letter, right? So now we're getting into my concrete experiences. Maybe it'll take a little more time to adjust the wording and whatnot. And then before you know it, so while I'm writing, like the second paragraph, I'm not thinking about what I wrote in the intro. I'm not thinking about how I'm going to wrap this up. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to put in the email to the prospective employer to introduce myself. I'm just thinking about that one sentence that I'm trying to write about this particular experience that I had at my previous job that demonstrates that I have transferable skills to this new position that I'm applying to. It's a really, really freeing way to get things done. Take your emotion out of it, basically. Take your emotion and your stress out of it. A lot of it is your ego as well, and I'm speaking for myself too. It's helpful to try to be self-aware and take a step back if something feels overwhelming to you. Ask yourself, okay, could it just be that I cannot handle such a big chunk of work at one time? Could it be that I need to break down this particular task into 10 even smaller micro tasks? And if the answer is yes, then just go with it and follow the process. Go one step at a time. Follow the mome rats like Alice, right? And discard of the idea that your talent or ability to get things done as a human being is measured by like how big of a task you can handle at any given time. No, that's not true. The greatest novel of all time was written word by word and letter by letter, just like any other piece of writing. The measure of whether or not you're successful is whether you can get the job done or not. It's not how you got there. Also, don't compare yourself with other people. Don't be looking around like, oh, but Mary and Sally were able to do this in a much shorter amount of time, or they didn't have to break it down into as many steps as I do. Does that mean that I'm not as capable? First of all, you have no idea really what other people had to do to get to where they are. You don't know what advantages they may have over you, what joker cards they may have used up their sleeves. And second of all, their process has nothing to do with your process. We are all different and unique. That's part of what makes this world, this society so beautiful. No two people are going to approach or complete any one task the same way. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a good thing. It speaks to our uniqueness as sovereign beings on this planet. Just focus on like moving your hands and feet and sometimes your brain, but even your brain, you can put that on autopilot in some ways. You can use AI, or just like when you're writing a cover letter, you don't have to come up with anything out of thin air. It's not like you're writing a fiction book, right? You can reference your past job experiences. You have older resumes, I'm sure, even if you didn't update them in a while, and that's another task that you have to do. You can refer to your old resumes, your old job descriptions of positions that you've held in the past. Use whatever is at your disposal. Take the emotion out of it and just focus on completing whatever task, whatever micro task that is directly in front of you. Just made it here, but I just stayed writing cover letters. My resume is already enough of a tough task. Yeah, I feel you. But like I said, we have AI on our side. We can break things down into micro tasks, literally break it down like sentence by sentence. If that's what you need to do in order to get through that cover letter creation with the least amount of stress possible, do it. Okay. Your priority should be, how do I get from point A to point B, and then point B to point C, and then all the way through until point Z? How do I get from point to point with the least amount of stress possible? That's also a good axiom to work by. Oh my God, I almost forgot. Do I even have it here? Wait, I bought something for to explain this very concept. I bought like a visual aid. Oh my God, I think I forgot. Oh wait, no, I got it. This is from Daiso. Okay, so this is a memorization set. I see people who are learning new languages use this. I don't know if it's just a Japan thing or if they have this in other countries, but like, for example, sometimes on the train, I will see Japanese high school students studying English from their English textbooks, right? Okay, I don't know if I can demonstrate it with this because I don't actually have one of those textbooks, but they have this red and green panel, right? Actually, you know what? Forget the colors. You can just apply this to regular reading. So let's say that this is just an example, like obviously this, I don't think most people would be overwhelmed at this, but some people might. If you look at like one page and it's overwhelming to you, the thought of reading this entire page, just take one of these, and your only job in this moment, in this present moment, is to read the first line. So then you can literally, I want you to mentally cover up and like put blinders on to whatever is to come afterwards, because that's only gonna make you more stressed out. Your only job right now is to read the first line. When you're done with the first line, then you can move it down to line 2. And then you just keep going. You keep going until before you know it, oh, no more lines left. I just read that entire page. That is essentially, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to get at here. Doing tasks in micro steps. I love how you simplify things. Thank you. I'm so glad I finally got to use this. I bought this like months ago because I had an idea to talk about this topic, but I just never got around to it. So, anyway, thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you so much for the moral support. I'll try to keep you guys updated